Pillows and everything.
Pillows, Christmas decorations. Actually, that could be. I mean, I don't know if you're.
Who do you think? Who do you think did that?
Probably her.
Yeah, it's definitely her. 100%. Well,
You know, you can tell a male lives here because that sword is just hanging there with nothing else.
couple nails.
Yeah, a couple nails.
Couple nails to the sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely did that. That was my touch. Oh man, happy Tuesday. Happy Election Day.
What a day! What a day to be alive.
We were just talking about this, but there's so much that goes into this.
Yeah.
So much work and time, energy, and effort has gone into the past few years of these well, one of them just started running a few months ago. But lots of preparation to get to this point, and it's all kind of happening, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly have no idea what to expect.
Me neither.
I'm not sure about you. And this is not going to be political whatsoever, but just because it is election day, I just want to say that I have no idea what's going to happen.
What's certain is that, God willing, we'll wake up tomorrow. We still get to go and choose to live a good life, make a good life, regardless of who's living in a certain house in DC on Pennsylvania Ave.
It's up to us.
You know, we still, one thing that's not taken away from us, which I feel like sometimes what's out there in the news and the media is like, if this person wins, democracy's gone, or if that person wins, your freedom is gone. It's like, man, we get to wake up every day and make a choice as to what we're going to do with our life, and that doesn't depend on who is in the office. So
100%.
focus on that.
So this is why you stayed away from politics up to this point, I feel like. Or tried to steer clear.
Yeah, but I've definitely become more interested this year for sure. But regardless, do my best to stay informed. I believe it's important that everybody's informed.
So I think staying informed and staying away from kind of two different things, right? Staying informed, just having the information is there. Staying away from isn't like staying away from the drama, right? Where I feel like a lot of people get sucked into the drama and they want to share it, they want to talk about it, they want to get into it. It's like they want to go to the rallies, they want to go to the meetups, they want to do all these things. I think that's great. And I was talking to somebody about it earlier today. It's wonderful how many people have gotten involved in politics.
Sure.
That frankly wouldn't have known anything about politics had it not been for maybe how crazy things have gotten, which is, once again, bright side. It's always a bright side of these things.
Yeah, I mean, what's the most exciting thing about it for you? You know, being somebody that has been more involved and taken interest in it over multiple years now.
I don't really know. I think I just like that there is always something going on, and I think I personally like staying super informed and up to date with what is going on in the world, and I always have. I don't know why necessarily, but I have. Some people are just like, why do you like it so much? Why do you like talking about it all the time? Like it affects everything we do on a daily basis. So if I'm able to get involved in it and better understand what's going on, then I can better understand what's actually happening to us, right? To feel controlled or not controlled, or to feel like the government's overreaching or not overreaching. It's like, well, how do you know that if you don't know anything about the government?
Right.
How do you know that if you don't know anything about politics? How are you aware of that if you've never actually studied or done any research? And so that's always gotten to me with people is they'll have a very strong opinion, but they didn't even go vote.
Yeah. Right.
Brother, but then they'll be like, well, it doesn't matter anyways. Well, good on you, but it does.
It does, yeah.
And you really should get involved. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to tell you how much you should get involved or what you should do to get involved, but it's probably not a bad idea to stay slightly informed. Mm-hmm. But what I can't stand, we're kind of going in a million different directions here, what I can't stand though is people that love to get into arguments without actually having ever been involved in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. And I've always talked about this. It's like, whether you get involved and you serve military, or you get involved in local politics, or you just go vote, as long as you actually go and get involved, then you're a part of it. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying you can't have a say regardless, but then you really should and truly do have a say because you are a little more informed. Mm-hmm. So that's my strong opinion on it. Yeah. But I don't think I can have arguments, which I enjoy. I enjoy the debates. I really do. Always have. So I can't really have a debate if I don't have any information.
Sure.
To support the debate or my argument.
Sure. Yeah. I'm gonna enjoy reading some comment sections tomorrow.
Yeah. I feel like we had to start with politics. It's election day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I think at least my stance will be, regardless of, obviously this will release post-election day.
Yeah.
So regardless of the result, if we even have one by the time this comes out,
Yeah.
we still get a choice.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. This might take a little while.
Good life, yeah.
I don't know if that's the dishwasher or if that's rain.
I believe
outside.
that is rain.
Is it raining?
It is raining.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go close the storm door real quick.
All right.
I will, before I get up and I start over that way, I am going to let you start though. You just ran a 150 miler across the Cooper River Bridge, the Ravenel Bridge. And the last time we met, we talked about the 100 miler that you did last year. And that piece in and of itself, people just loved it. They ate it up. They were like, this is amazing. And now you've done a 150 miler. And so we get to dive into that story today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask that. I'm going to say, hey, let's talk about that. I'm going to close the storm door so it's not super loud because it's getting louder as it keeps raining. Bucket out there that's collecting water, but also you can just hear the entire time. So my ADHD is going to be terrible this entire podcast if I hear that. So yeah, so you ran a 150 miler and you've now for the second year in a row done it in order to raise money for cancer awareness. So let's first and foremost, why 150 miles? We talked about this while we were running the other day too.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I asked myself that question a few times during. I'm like, what the heck were you thinking?
Yeah.
But zooming out, why 150? Short answer is just, hey, I've already ran 100 miles a couple times in my life, and I'm coining this term. Maybe it already exists. I've become distance curious.
That's a great way to put it.
We hear about all these different curiosity things.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, hey, I'm distance curious, man. I want to see, in the running world, okay, when you run your first marathon, most of the time your people will start thinking, okay, well, I want to do an ultra now.
Yeah.
What's a 50K? So that's the first ultra marathon distance. It's 31 miles, and you figure, okay, if I've ran 26.2. Okay, I can run 31.
Right.
And then you start progressing, and then as you get to the 100-mile distance, I started thinking okay, well, I know there's people that run 200 milers and all these different things, and well, what about 150 on the bridge? I did 100 on the bridge last year, so really it was, why not make it harder and see what the body and mind is capable of?
Yep.
And of course, people are saying, well, why not just do 110 or 125?
I think I said 125.
Yeah, or even 105. That would be cool. And really, I don't have the best answer other than, hey, 150 sounded like a challenge. Yeah. And that's what I landed on and figured, let's go do it.
Looking back on it, I apologize for even making that comment while we were running. I think you were at mile 40, and I was like, why 150? Why not 125? And you're probably like, Cameron, shut up, dude. I'm not trying to do this thing. Please stop asking questions.
Don't tell me where I'm at. Yeah.
So I my apologies for hopefully I didn't get in your head at all. Obviously I didn't because you crushed it. But as we were running, I was like, man, I really should have. I don't know why I said that. I was trying to be funny, just keep the conversation.
No, it was great. I appreciated it. And you weren't the only one. So you're doing 150, and then but sometimes I'd hear him "Damn, don't remind me." But then then other times I'm like, oh no, it's kind of cool to hear it. Yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And even it just ingrains it further in your mind. No, you can do this thing. We're gonna get it done. We're not gonna stop until until the watch says 150. Even if we're out here till Monday or Tuesday, because we started on Saturday at 3:30 in the morning, and fortunately. It didn't extend past Sunday, so that's good.
That's a good thing. That's a really good thing. We also we kind of hit on this while we were on the bridge too. You and I have had this conversation a number of times where when you first start doing something, there are obviously always your critics, right? And the people that say, well, you're going to hurt yourself, or that's too much, or that's too hard, or why are you pushing yourself to the limits? And obviously you in your head, you're like, well, I'm doing this not just. Well, obviously there's multiple reasons for it, but I'm doing it for me, right? A lot of this is for ourselves. A lot of things we do to push ourselves, and we have to do that, right? It's not up to anybody else. We have to push ourselves to get there, and to do those hard things. And I think you have just constantly challenged and pushed yourself from a consistency perspective on your podcast, on the running, on work, and everything you've done. So it's really, really cool to watch as you continue to do these things. And I know it's difficult. I get it. This is difficult, right? Keeping the podcast going consistently is hard enough, but running 150 miles over the bridge is just wild. So I think the word that came to my mind initially was psychotic, and I was like, this man is just off the charts. But there's something to be said about doing hard things consistently and continuing to push the limits, where some people will do one thing and be like, well, that was hard enough. I think I'm good. Like, you got 2 legs. You got the ability to continue doing it. If you have the ability to keep doing it, you probably should keep trying harder things to push your limits and to keep getting better. So I had this feeling, and I know that's you in a nutshell, right? You just keep pushing the limits. So where do you kind of go from here? And we're going to talk in a minute about, you know, the reason for the 150 and all that. But where do you go from here? Once you've done the 150, like mentally, or at the end of it, do we like, I'm ready for 200? Or was there some other thought that went through your head at the end of this?
You know, the beauty of it, one of the things you mentioned is like, okay, you keep exploring your limitations, and it's important to continue doing hard things. There's so many benefits to it. I believe one of them being that you prove yourself right on what you can do. And one of the reasons why I love doing these type of things is because, sure, from a physical perspective, you get to see what you're made of, but then life doesn't just offer you challenges from a physical perspective. There's mental, emotional challenges, all sorts of things that we're going to be exposed to. For what right now, today, we're living through what may be a troubling time for who knows, or for some people, it's going to be very difficult.
Let's hope not.
I believe by going through these tough things or putting yourself in these challenging arenas, the other challenging arenas in life that life may present to you don't appear as difficult, and you're like, I got this. Like, you can do anything.
Yeah.
So that's the importance, and why I believe like everybody should do it. Everybody doesn't need to go run 150, but whatever you believe your limit is, even if it's running 5 miles, or even if it's nothing related to physical nature, but anyways, whatever it is, go and bring yourself to that point, and then just push a little bit more.
Yeah.
So what's in my mind right now, yes, there is a number with a 2 for sure. I've been thinking about, okay, do we do 200 on the bridge next year? Do we run across the state of South Carolina? Like I figured it'd be fun to do this same thing, but starting at my hometown in Fort Mill, just outside of Charlotte, and then run to Charleston. So about 220 miles, something like that. It is in my mind, and I've got no doubt that I can do it. And doing this 150 kind of helped, you know, just solidify in my mind, like, hey, we all have so many more levels than we believe.
Yeah.
And that's why this stuff is important. So exploring 200 in my mind right now. Don't know exactly, you know, when I'm going to commit to it, but I'll definitely go further than 150 someday.
Hell yeah. That's all I'm gonna say. Hell yeah. You must have gone to a like super deep, dark place to a certain degree, like somewhere on the bridge, because you know once you pass 100, you're like, what did that last year? That sucked. That hurt. What was it like? Mile what? Where you were like, I am in a deep, dark place, and I'm just gonna keep going.
So I was out there for 43 hours total, about 32 and a half hours running.
And a lot of time by yourself too. A lot of time you had a lot of people there, but like still plenty of gaps.
Yeah, you know, it was really cool. So it's 30 laps back and forth on the Ravenel. For context, for people that might not be from Charleston, or it's this 5 mile span of bridge, and you gain about 400 feet every time. And so going back and forth on it 30 times, you know, it was really cool. Cameron, is including you, I had 36 different people that I can recall that were out there. And along those 30 laps, I think I was alone for maybe 5 to 6 total, which, yeah, it was like 25 to 30 lonely miles, but across 150 over 43 hours and it wasn't all in a row where I had people not there. Like, people were coming at 3 a.m., at 1 a.m., going into Sunday. It was just amazing the level of support.
Yeah.
What's also amazing over 43 hours and over that distance, your mind will take you to the highest peaks and the deepest valleys. And you don't know when it's coming. You know it's coming, but you don't know when. And so mile 80, actually, it must have been around, probably around 11 p.m. or so on Saturday night. And I'd only slept for about 5 hours the day before, because it's tough for me to sleep before things like this. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, like, oh, I only have 4 more loops left. Like, we're almost done. And then I remembered
I had 50 miles.
that I was running 150 miles. Oh my God, Cameron.
Shit.
I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to run 70 more miles? And I got a little depressed in that moment. And my mind started doing things I didn't even know it could do. Like, I'm literally looking for ways in my mind to justify not doing 150 miles. I'm thinking, okay, I won't quit because I've made this commitment to the public and we've got this huge cause, this amazing reason why we're doing this. We're impacting multiple families. I can't just pull out of it because I'm tired. But if a bike hits me,
God, that was one of your thoughts. That's awful.
I'm like, if a bike hits
Well,
me,
it happened to Dave. Why not happen to me?
oh my God, no, because I'm thinking, all right, it's not going to kill me, it'll injure me, but then I can justify not being out here because I really don't want to be out
And then I
here
can
right
come back in a couple months after I heal my bones and I can run the rest of it.
Exactly. Oh my God, I'm telling you, this is why like your mind is your greatest asset, and it could also be your most powerful, or your greatest enemy.
Yeah.
Because we can tell ourselves so many stories and we'll believe them.
Yeah.
Or you can convince yourself to quit and not go after the thing that you want so badly. But mile 80, yeah, I had that thought, oh my God, 70 more to go. I'm starting to get tired. And then literally, I mean, I'm not even kidding, looking for ways, how can I justify this? Okay, well, if a bike hit me, then, that's probably going to put me out. I won't die. That's good. Maybe a car, like a tire will fall off a car, because we saw a car smash against the sidewall earlier. And I'm not wishing for anyone to get injured here, other than myself.
I mean, maybe a big ship runs into the bridge.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. As long as I'm thinking, as long as no one else gets hurt except for me, but not like to where I'm gonna die, but just to where I can get the heck off this bridge. Yeah. Maybe it's like a sprained ankle or something. And yeah, that was probably the lowest point that I had. And then I slept for about 45 minutes in a chair around mile 100, and I'm curled up in this ball, and I've got a wet towel on me. My body is shivering, not because it's cold out, but because like it doesn't know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
I've got the sweat that's dried on me now, nasty shorts on. My ass is chafed, everything. My nipples are chafed. It's disgusting.
So were your nipples bleeding at any point?
Oh, I duct taped my nipples. Because that's how bad the chafing was getting. Like, literally duct taped them. That was an experience in the shower.
When I got
sure, that
home.
was awful.
But I'm sitting there just like, oh my God, please, like somebody just come like knock me off this chair right now. And those first few steps after I woke up from that like 45 minutes of sleep, you feel all of the pain from like the 22 hours before. And then, okay, well, 50 more, let's go.
Yeah.
But then following those lows are some of the highest highs you'll have. And then I remember, at like mile 148, man, this is over? Like, I'm kind of sad, like we just got started. So you just go on this surreal roller coaster, mental roller coaster. But man, yeah, mile 80, I wouldn't want to do that one again.
Yeah. Nuts.
I'm glad I biked.
I told you this a number of times. It's like it was mile 15 for me in the marathon when I'd never run more than 14 miles.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I got this. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, I can do this.
Sure.
14 miles, fine. I felt great up to 14 miles. and you hit mile 15, you're like, oh, this is what it feels like to push yourself.
Yeah.
This is what it feels like to go that next level. And you just don't realize it until you actually do it. You're like, well, this sucks.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, should I just stop and like stand here and not do anything, or should I keep going? Right? So I'm not sure that was exactly what you were feeling in mile 80, but it's probably pretty similar.
You just gotta keep going, man. Yeah.
We I think in like setting goals and doing the things that we do in life, it's so nice. We've had this conversation a million times, but putting it out there that I'm doing this, I'm committing to this, I'm letting people know, I'm making this public. So when I fail, I'm failing publicly, and if I'm successful, I'm succeeding publicly. But regardless, I'm putting it out there in the universe to say, hey, I'm doing this thing, and I have to stay true to myself to get it done, because if not, then the entire world knows.
Exactly.
Powerful thing to do.
Yeah.
Powerful thing to do.
Yeah.
So tell us more about the organization and or who you ended up giving the funds to, because I believe you ended up raising
$7,000.
Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate it. So yeah, we're gonna identify families that currently have a loved one battling cancer to give that away to, and that's really the highlight of this whole thing. Sure, got to learn some stuff about myself, inspire some people, show others, or at least one person, like, hey, you can push a lot harder than you think. But one thing I thought about when I was out there too is like, this pain that I'm experiencing right now is fixed, meaning there's a distance that I'm going, and at that point it's done. I'll be in pain for a little bit, but it's fixed. The families that don't know they're counting on me yet, because they're going to be blessed here soon, their pain's not fixed. They don't have a date on the calendar like, all right, Cameron, on November 8th, your cancer will be gone. So I'm thrilled to identify them and give it away. And yeah, this is something done for 2 years now through what I call my passion project, but eventually converted into like its own 501c3 called Breaking Ribbons. I wear a singlet with 3 cancer ribbons on it for people that have lost in my life to various forms of cancer. And in a perfect world, we don't have these ribbons because we have cures. And when you win a race, the winner breaks tape or breaks a ribbon. So that's how Breaking Ribbons was born. And yeah, last year we raised $5.5 grand and reached out or provided to 4 families. So $7,000 this year and at least another 4, maybe 5 this year.
So if it correlates, you raise $5 grand at 100, you raise $7 grand at 150, pushing 10, 15, 20 at 200, if not a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah, I was thinking, if I'm running 50 more miles, I've got to raise at least $50 to make this worth it.
Just give me a call. I would have given you $50 on the spot.
I'm seriously thinking through it and like, okay, at the end of the day, even if, let's just say, we raised $2,000.
Yeah.
Great. That's going to help people that need it more than anything right now. But it was a little sweeter knowing that the extra miles did lead to additional donations, more people finding out about it.
Absolutely.
And here we go. Yeah, and I do dream about the day where, yeah, like 10K, 20K, 30K, 50K, and maybe the distance just keeps going up.
What's amazing, once again, back to this too, it's just like the consistency thing too.
Yeah.
And then you can see the results. It's clear as day, right? It doesn't have to be 100,000 right now, right? But it's very clear that in putting in the work, you've been able to go from 5 to 7, and 100 to 150, right? So this is a conversation that I'd like to have with you, because you've been putting this work for this long, right? On these projects, you've been putting together the podcast for a while now, and you're 170. 173
Yeah.
on your podcast, and you've been running these rates, you've been running a lot, you've been pushing out content, you've been meeting with people, you've been helping people for a number of years now. What is that like when you're you don't see what you expect, right? Like growth wise, like you see the downloads, you see the followers, you have the conversations, right? But you're like, well, I haven't raised $50,000 yet.
Yeah.
What is that like though when you go from 5 to 7 grand and you're like, I know it's coming? You're
Yeah.
like, I'm doing it. I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Because you're obviously starting to see results, but it's maybe taken till now to get to this point.
Mhm.
What is that like, though, that mental battle, right, on a daily basis to just keep going? And, you know, you've been a great friend to me. When I stopped posting, you were like, Cameron, where's the next podcast? I was like, God, this guy's on it. Like, I got to keep going. But what has that been like for you? Because you're seeing results, but you know you got so much further to go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You know, one thing I've learned, and the theme that's coming up here is like this consistency. We'll focus on the consistency word. If someone simply doesn't stop do it, whatever it is that they want to have, or whatever goal, whatever dream they're chasing, if you simply don't stop, it's simply a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. And that when, for some people, may come a lot sooner than others. You know, of course, I think about seeing $50,000 and $100,000 and the podcast and going up to millions of downloads and that being like a full-time thing, all of that. But that's not going to come by simply dreaming about it and talking about it like this and not and the action's not backing the words. So to me, the 7,000 from 5, okay, it proved like this is working. We're gonna keep, now more people know who I am, what this is all about. Ideally, they back it again next year or help tell 1 or 2 more people, and who knows where it goes from there. But man, and the other thing is, you know, I've been fortunate enough to meet so many people that are doing the thing, you know, that I want to do, and are living the life that I want to create, and that success leaves clues, man.
Absolutely.
And when you study them, like one of the key themes too, they just don't stop. So to me, it excites me more than anything. I know it's going to happen. As much as I'd love to, all right, it's going to be here tomorrow.
Give me go. So much more worth it too.
Exactly. You know, but it will happen. It's happening. And I've also learned to appreciate the wins too. Like, okay, 7,000, that was a big win. Smell the roses a little bit. I'm looking ahead now, but that's if the goalpost is always moving, and we don't take time to acknowledge what it took for us to cross those yardage markers, we're never going to allow ourselves to enjoy the wins.
Huge part of it. And just for context, and for people that are probably like, well, Cameron, why did you put them on the spot like that or ask that question? You have big goals and aspirations. That's what, and I know that. And so that's really my reason for asking is like, you know, you're at this point and you obviously you've accomplished these things, you've done these great things, but I know you've got much bigger goals and aspirations. So I'm more so like, okay, well now, you know, as you set your sights on bigger and better things, you know, how do you work towards staying consistent and keeping that same mentality and keeping the drive alive and keep it going, right? It really all goes back to consistency. It's like the theme of this podcast, consistency and discipline at the end of the day too. Which obviously you're the master of consistency at this point. I think that should be really the name of your podcast, but master of consistency. But it's been really fun to watch and really enjoyable to watch. So I asked that question to kind of say, hey, we talked about the definition of success last time too, and what success really means to us. And I think we're just, as we kind of go through life, at least and just better understanding that, like every single day, you kind of just get a better understanding of what success looks like on a daily basis. First and foremost, I'm just thankful that I woke up today. That was a success.
Amen.
Right? You know, just to dedicate this podcast to my brother-in-law's brother passed away this past week. He's been in a wheelchair pretty much his entire life. 36 years old. They didn't expect him to live past 5 or 6, like early days. But made it to 36 years old, and it's one of those things where you're like, man. 36 years of life that would not expect it. That's a success. Would never, some people wouldn't even look at it that way. They'd be like, 36 years of life and in a wheelchair, did he, what kind of life, was he living, sort of thing. But it's like, that was 36 years of life in which he brought so much joy to people across the board. That's a success, right? So it's, it makes you realize things, and it's humbling when people do pass away. And you're like, death is a part of life. But at the end of the day, like, it gives everybody that's alive and living a unique perspective to better live their life.
Yeah.
And to enjoy and appreciate it a little more. So,
I'm
dedicating
sorry
this one to Richie.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think after doing the run with you last week, and then having life events occur, you just gain a new appreciation for life and what success truly means on a daily basis. And I go back to having 2 legs and having the ability to do it. It's a lot. It's mental, but at the end of the day too, it's I have the ability to do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push because I can.
Yep.
And I'm gonna support those who can't.
Yep.
And give back to those who can't. And hopefully along the way inspire some people, which you've done an enormous job of. Once again, not to continue to boost your ego in this podcast, but seriously, you've done an incredible job of doing that. Really, really appreciate it. So once again, shout out to my family, and this one goes out to Richie.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, man. Cheers to Richie.
Cheers, Richie.
Cheers to Richie.
Absolutely. So as a follow-up to that, what else is going on? Not to leave us on a
Yeah.
sobering note, but
Man, well, if there's a takeaway that I wish people would have, because I think sometimes folks may get this misconstrued. Like, I'm not saying that people need to go and run 1,000,000 miles to live this amazing life, but do something. When you commit to doing something that's bigger than you, and you challenge whatever you believe your limits to be, just a little bit, I believe you'll find that you'll live a much more fulfilling life. You'll surprise yourself, and you'll make others better along the way. I don't think there's too many formulas to living a great life, because at the end of the day, we determine what a great life is, and it looks different to everybody. But what I do believe to be true is when you do those 2 things, it's pretty hard not. I couldn't imagine doing those 2 things and then still feeling down about life.
Yeah.
And it is a blessing to be alive, and and I believe that we can take things for granted sometimes. We have 2 legs. We can walk. It's a blessing to feel pain. Austin, it was a blessing to feel pain in these legs. Because I just heard about Richie. Yep. Imagine he would have killed to have that pain in his legs.
Yeah.
And sometimes people complain about having to walk too far from their car to the grocery store. The parking lot to the grocery store, man.
Yep.
Be grateful.
You did at one point on the bridge say, if my leg falls off, I will still finish this thing.
Oh,
it was
I did say that.
At mile 40, you were like, I think you said if a car hits me or there's something along the way, but you were like, if for some reason my leg falls off, I'm gonna finish this thing. And I was like, that's intense.
Sometimes some of the things that come out of my mouth when I'm doing these things, man, I don't people tell me things I said. I said that. And
you gotta go to that place. You have to go to that place.
My girlfriend was saying,
I think at one point I might have said, and I could have said this multiple times, but yeah, I do remember. I was like, I will chop this fucking thing off and use it as a crutch, and I will sew it back on after I'm done. But I'll be damned. So even though I was saying I was justifying ways to be out there, if the bike ran me over, I would have freaking crawled 70 miles. I don't care.
Yeah.
I might have still been out there crawling right now.
There was like a part of me when you said it, I was like, that's intense. I was like, that's a lot. I was like, would he really do that? And I thought too, I was like, in order to accomplish certain things, you really got to go to a place mentally that not many people are willing to go to, and say those things to yourself to get through it, right? So it's like, don't judge a person based off what they say when they're in something super intense and heated. Like if they're competing, right? Like a lot of tennis players. Anyway, I was watching a tennis match recently, so I'll reference that. Yeah. But they'll throw a racket, or they'll get super upset in the middle of it. You're like, well, that's terrible sportsman. It's like, the guy is in the middle of one of the most intense competitions of his life.
Yeah.
I was like, it's okay to get a little heated from time to time, right? Sportsmanship's also a good thing. But it's like, it's okay to say certain things and get yourself, because you have to get yourself to that place in order to finish it. And I feel like we've taken a lot of that out of it nowadays, and people are like, oh, why would you say that? That's, be a little more sensitive. It's like, or I could say that thing to myself and get really in the zone and go compete and be the best version of myself possible. Because I pushed myself to that limit.
Yeah. A lot of it's just, you gotta convince yourself in the moment, because there's probably a voice in your head like, oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't be doing this right now. Like, no, shut up. We're doing this regardless of what you think. And
So you sure you weren't hallucinating at that point?
Not at 40. That would have been too early.
Yeah.
But I know in some marathons, man, like when I was at the Wilmington Marathon, the first year I attempted to qualify for Boston, I got rhabdo at mile 24. I went back to that same race 10 months later, and at mile 24, that ended up being my fastest mile of the race, but the things that were coming out of my mouth, like, I feel bad for the volunteers that were handing out water. This is like
these two little
girls.
These two little girls.
It's these two little girls, and because I remember passing out at that point the year prior, and I'm like 2 miles away. I'm on pace to finally qualify for Boston. Dude, Cameron, I'm going nuts. I'm like, I hope it's okay to cuss on this thing. Like, I'm going like David Gogg. I'm like, you don't fucking know me. Like, you know what yeah. Not even like I'm winning this race, but I'm winning my own mental race. Yeah. But I'm telling my body and mind, like, we're tired, but fucking let's go, man. Like, this thing is happening. And I'm pretty sure, like, I've got this mental image of those two girls, like, they're looking at me like I'm beating my chest like a damn gorilla. I'm like, let's fucking go. And there's a picture of me. My mom got one like 100 meters from the finish, and I'm going absolutely nuts because I'm coming in like right under 3 hours. And like, whatever you got to do, man. Sometimes it comes down to like this mental warfare. Yeah. Whatever you got to do, whatever you got to say it. Do it.
Absolutely. Don't judge people when they're in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at myself.
Because as soon as you said you were going to cut your leg off, that's when I stopped running with you the other day.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Oh, man. I had a great follow-up question to that, and I'm totally blanking right now. But I was just thinking through all the things that I've said when I'm in the heat of the moment. And you're like, all right, like, let's fucking get it. Yeah. And, definitely curse people out before, not on purpose. Yeah. But you're just like, hey, you're around. Like, somebody's gonna bear the brunt of my fresh aggression right now, so I'm gonna be cursing. Mm-hmm. So, oh man,
I got a fun one for you if I can.
Absolutely, come on.
All right, so I'm really proud of you. You've started this thing. I remember last time I was here, we were recording with 2 phones. I had to wear your shirt because I had to wear your shirt. Thank God we're around the same size. Yep. And because coming from work, I thought that I had my other shirt in the car, and then I realized that my wallet was home, so I couldn't make an emergency run to TJ Maxx or Nordstrom Rack, whatever. And we're sitting here now with an amazing setup. We got cameras, we got the cinematic view, these mics on the boom, Shure mics. Amazing. You talk about consistency and declaring, putting it out there in the world. What's next? So, what's next with the pod, man? What are we gonna see? I mean, you can't get all this cool stuff and not have some sort of next steps or vision for how all this is gonna be utilized.
I was gonna do a camera review. I was gonna say we're gonna be sponsored by Celsius next. But you have the camera with the cinematic view, so you're the one that has to say it indirectly into the camera.
Oh, Celsius. What?
Sponsor me.
Yeah, sponsored by Celsius. Yeah.
No, that's the next step.
Sponsored by Celsius.
Yeah. No, I think the next step for this is, it truly goes back to consistency, which we've talked about a million times, but is doing this again, right? I'm gonna do the next one, and next week I'm gonna have another one, and I'm gonna keep people coming in here, and I'm gonna keep pumping out content. I told myself early on too, I was like, I'm consuming all these podcasts, and I keep telling people this. It's like, hey, I've consumed all these podcasts. Why not create one? Why not push out some content? Why not try to provide some people with value? So I think for me, this will be episode 24. Episode 25 is going to be next week, and I've already got that one booked. And so getting to episode 50 is my next goal. It's like we're going to get to 50, and then once we get to 50, we're going to get to 75. Once we get to 75, we're going to get to 100. But I'm trying not to think about 100 before I get to 25, you know?
Sure.
So taking it in strides and enjoying the process, and hopefully getting to a point where people are like, hey, I really like this content from you, and figuring out more of a path, or maybe never figuring out a path and just keeping it like this, where it's super conversational. And I'm like, yo, my friends are doing super cool things, so we're gonna come in and we're gonna talk about it. But I think continuing to grow the presence is always a part of it. There's always a number associated with it too, whether it's the number of podcasts you pump out, or the number of subscribers you have. I've still continued to play around with that too, because I'm like 67 subscribers on YouTube, and I'm like, wow, 67 people are subscribing to this already. I was like, I don't even have good equipment yet. So it's like, hey, there's still a bunch of room to grow, and I know that, but at least we've gotten to this point, right? And so to your point earlier, you gotta pat yourself on the back and appreciate what you've done, right? You gotta appreciate the things you've accomplished in life. You gotta appreciate your successes. You gotta appreciate your failures. This one has seen a bunch of failures too, right? A bunch of audio equipment issues, video equipment issues, and lighting, and it's still not perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Do it. Get out there. Start moving around. But I get more enjoyment from having these conversations and continuing to build relationships through the podcast than anything else.
Yeah.
I told a friend this other day, I was like, there are certain things in life that I enjoy right now. I was like, but the podcast just is super enjoyable. And I'm going to keep doing it for that reason specifically. Once again, it leads to somebody getting some great value out of it and a great relationship or connection or something like that. It's wonderful. Yeah. But for the purposes of fulfillment, we're doing the podcast. Yeah. We're going to keep it going.
Yeah.
But yeah,
put it out there in the world too.
The goal is to grow to 1 million subscribers in the next 5 years. That is certainly my goal. Yeah. On whatever platform, hopefully YouTube, and continue providing value.
I love it.
But I think inspiring stories is a part of it, but perspective on life, right? We live, we experience things, we pass away. We have to talk about them and enjoy them as much as we possibly can while we're here. So why not share them and help people live the best life they can possibly live with information and comedy and politics and business and all the above. But we're not going to get into politics. I told you we wouldn't. For the sake of your brands, we won't get into politics.
It's all good. I'm in the be a good person party.
Yep.
And that consists of, I love you if you're on the left or the right. Just be a good person, do good things, challenge yourself, push your limits, listen to Cameron's podcast.
Yeah, be a good person, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. Yeah. I don't know, and I talk about like the next steps too. Like there's definitely a number that I have in mind. Yeah. But I think I have to produce a bunch of good content for us to get there, and recognizing that first and foremost is huge. But then out of that too, hopefully world travels and experiences. I think the biggest thing for me is experiences. I've the travel that I've done up to this point has all been because I enjoy the experience over the product. I enjoy the experience over buying the new thing. I really truly want to go have experiences with people more than anything, because that's where I find enjoyment. Yeah. So I think that is my goal, right? To have the coolest experiences as a result of building something. I build this podcast, I have cool experiences. I enjoy life, I provide value, I have cool experiences. That all sounds great to me. So
my challenge to you is, once this is out, go back and listen to these last 10 minutes or so that we just had.
Yep.
Listen to it in 3 months and 6 months, a year from today, and see how much of what you just said and is true. So that means that the episode count is going to be up there.
Yep.
How many new experiences have been created? I believe you'll surprise yourself. We all do. Sometimes I still go back to the very beginning and listen to episode 2, episode 4, and gosh, I wouldn't encourage anybody to do that on mine.
Same.
Well,
listen to the guests, but not me, because I was not the best interviewer. But it's so cool to see. That's why these conversations are so important, and that's why the reason why I asked you that was more for encouragement too. dude, I know you're going to do it. But now it's spoken word. Now it's out there in the world. Like, okay, I want to reach out to you in 25 weeks and celebrate episode 50. Matter of fact, we should do like, hey, why don't we
We do an episode
dinner or do something cool? I don't know what the thing is. You know, like, but there it is, man. There's a real live example of declaring your intention, and watch, like, you value being a person of your word. You are a person of your word. You're committed to delivering content and creating, more importantly, creating valuable experiences for people and information that's going to help them learn and grow. It's going to happen, man. So that was my whole intent behind even bringing that up and going down that path.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, we talked about going back to the early days, the early episodes. If you go back and look at anybody's early episodes, early days of anything, it's just funny, right?
Yeah.
To go back and look at people and be like, man, they've done this, and they've done that, and they've accomplished all these things. Like, well, go back and look at their early days too. Everything pretty much is the same, right? Everybody starts somewhere and they grow it into something else as long as they keep going.
That goes back to that question you asked me earlier. Like, how do you feel about, going from 5 to 7, and what is that process like? And going to that, well, yeah, it's only a matter of time. It will go up. Look at when you think about the early videos. I still remember watching Gary Vaynerchuk the guy looked like a freaking nerd. Just call it like it is. Looked like a freaking nerd in the beginning when he was starting Wine Library.
Yep.
Had a goofy haircut. Like, nobody watched the videos. Yep. People made fun of him. Look at him now. Look how many people tune in to Gary Vee. Just as one example.
It's a great example, though.
Yeah.
Great example.
And that guy talks about consistency all day long. There's a million stories that we can probably throw back and forth right now. But it literally comes down to these people had a dream and a vision, and they allowed nothing to stop them.
Yeah.
And
for those that it takes years to then see true results, those individuals, I think I have even more respect for, right? Those that you're like, damn, I know you've been putting in work for years now.
Yeah.
Whereas some people, very few, as we both know, are an overnight success, whatever that maybe looks like, right? But it probably makes it that much sweeter for those individuals that have put in the work and time and effort and just continue to grow it, right?
Yeah.
To then get to that point.
Yeah.
Because you get to feel it the entire time, right?
Yeah.
You don't just create one and you immediately see success, right? You create and you do and you build to become a better person.
Yeah.
And I feel like timing is everything, and God's timing is amazing, right, across the board. But there's something to be said about somebody who is building and doesn't get 1 million subscribers overnight, right? They build something properly. They work out the kinks. They build value. They become more valuable, and then eventually, when the time is truly right, then they become whatever they need to become.
Mm-hmm.
Thought about that a lot as of late too. You're like, when is that time? You're like, as you continue to do this, as I continue to do these things, it's like I wanted this, and this to happen by the time I was 25. That didn't happen. It's like, well, why not? It's not why not. It's just a matter of becoming the person I feel like you need to become in order for it to actually.
Process of becoming.
Yeah.
But here's one thing that actually helped me a lot. It was this new mental reframe, especially as I was going through the 150 and speaking about time.
Yeah.
So 43 hours is the amount of time I was out there. That equals 1.8 days. But when we think about, even these pursuits that we're on, let's envision that the big man's going to allow us to be here till we're 100 years old. Okay. I'll be 32 in a month from yesterday. You're going to be what?
29.
29? Okay. So roughly the same age. So I've lived 32% of my life. You've lived 29% of your life. So let's say that it takes 5 years for the Cameron Brown show to really take off. When we zoom out, that only represents 5% of your life. That when it gets to where you're talking about, you're going to enjoy that for the next, let's just say, 50, 60-ish years?
Yep.
So are you willing to invest 5% of your life to enjoy your dream for the next 60%? Like, sometimes I don't feel like we think so. When I was thinking about this tough time that I'm in, 43 hours, here's what I was thinking about too, that got me back into the game. That represents 0.00005% of my life, or 0.4932 if I go the exact math. But I thought about this, like, okay, can I give up 0.00005% of my life, a fraction of a percentage, really a fraction of a percentage of life, that is going to inspire people for decades, give a story to tell for the next 70% of my life, that will inspire people to push their limits and create an impact on multiple families for a substantial percentage of their life. You know, if I put it out there, Cameron, would you be willing to invest 0.005% of your life in this really hard thing that's gonna allow you to be in front of millions of people now? And, you know, of course you'd say yes. You can't even produce those returns in the stock market. You can't even produce those returns if you founded Bitcoin. So I think about that. Relative to time, when we zoom out, why not dedicate those extra hours towards your dream? And don't stop, because when you zoom out, all of those hours will probably equal less than 10% of your life, and you'll get to reap the rewards for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It's this amazing thing, and I'm gonna start talking about that more.
It's a hell of a mental reframe.
Yeah.
Hell of a mental reframe. And I don't do it often enough, right? And I think in our society too, we want instant gratification. And we want it, but we've been basicly manipulated into wanting it more, right? Everything we do is instant. And so running 150 miles is not instant gratification by any means. And so, you know, to get yourself out of this mindset of, okay, it's not instant, but if I can reframe my mindset, yeah, that sounds cool. So if I can reframe my mindset to get to that point where I realize, okay, zoom out. What are you really looking to accomplish?
Yeah.
And a part of that too is figuring out what you really do want to accomplish too, right? Where nobody really starts with that crucial, not many people start with that crucial first step of figuring out what you truly want to accomplish and properly going through that exercise, right? Where I think I've been doing a lot of that, you know, over the past few years. Of like, what do you really want to accomplish?
Yeah.
What do you really want to do?
Yeah.
And people can say freedom all they want. It's like, really identify what you want to do. And I know you do this with a lot of people too. So, so that's been one of the fun. We probably should go do a better exercise of that off, you know, another time.
Sure.
But I think it's really good to have that conversation openly and be like, okay, well, you've kind of identified some things, but if you really pinpoint where you want to be, because if you can't see it, you're probably not going to accomplish it. If you can't manifest it, you're probably not going to accomplish it. So it's like, you got to be able to see it.
Yep.
And then you can make sense of it, and then you can start working towards it.
Yeah.
But good to have a mental reframe and to zoom out, but it's also good to identify it first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We already have all the answers for our lives. Got to sit down and spend time with those questions.
Yeah.
We already have all the tools we need to, but sit down and write it down and think about it.
So for those that are looking to try to figure out their goals, success, or aspirations, really trying to figure out what their purpose is in life, because a lot of people are struggling with this.
Yeah.
And I guess this has just been human for all, you know, of humankind. I guess we've always kind of struggled with this, but as it relates to people figuring out their purpose and their vision and their true mission in life, what would you suggest first for them? As maybe like an exercise. So I think we kind of went through this before.
Yeah.
But what would you suggest to those people that didn't hear the last podcast?
Yeah, the two questions I would leave people with. The first one, the most important one. What's important to you? And really, deeply think about it, because it's a simple question. There's no profound questions that, at least that I've found or that I've utilized, but what is truly most important to you in life? And sit with it, look at it on paper, and write down everything that comes to mind, and you'll be able to cross some stuff out. You're like, once you see it on paper and get it out of your mind, because our mind has an abundance of thoughts, 50,000, 80,000 per day. But the paper isn't going to jump with 50,000 things on it.
Yeah.
So you'll sit and you're like, okay, these are maybe the 3 to 5 things that really matter to me the most. And it could be based off of various experiences. And from there, the next question, once you're clear on what's important to you, how do I want to make an impact? What would success look like in that thing or that group of things? What's really important to me, coming from a broken household and then discovering personal development, is teaching people how to develop a foundation for sustained success. How do I want to make an impact with that? That's why the Win Today podcast exists. That's why One Day exists. That's why I do speaking and coaching. That's why my mastermind group and an online course that I finally finished, like, is coming out this month. Like,
that's super exciting.
That's part of the impact, you know, there. Like, hey, this stuff comes, and sometimes if people really want to think, like, what do I really have to offer? Another thing to look at is, what's something really difficult that you've encountered in your life, and how did you find your way out of it? A lot of our purpose sometimes comes from our greatest pain. My purpose, how I discovered this, comes from being the middleman between my parents. It comes from answering the door to the police coming to the house because, you know, all this chaos was ensuing. Like, sometimes our deepest pain will give us our greatest gifts and deliver this purpose, if you will. I feel like sometimes that's I don't know about that word sometimes. Just it'll give you, I look at it like, hey, we have an abundance of gifts, some that are actually packaged as gifts, and some that don't look like it, but it's creating the pathway for what you're meant to do in this life. But what's important? How do you want to make an impact?
How do you feel about the word happiness?
I feel like I believe happiness to be a choice, not this thing that you get after. It's not outcome based for me. So I think about the when I then I syndrome. When I get 1 million podcast subscribers,
I'll be happy.
Then I'll be happy. No, man. How about when I wake up tomorrow, I'm gonna choose to be as happy as I can and make progress on my goals, help somebody, do things that I define as making me happy, and that whoever's listening defines as making them happy. You know, but sometimes I feel like we look at it as this outcome-based emotion when I believe it to be a choice that we get to have every day.
It's like another reframe too, is like, we have all these emotions. If you can find a way to appreciate the fact that you get to feel these emotions, or feel the pain, as you mentioned, if I can appreciate just being able to feel this roller coaster of emotions throughout life, then I can maybe get to that quote unquote happiness, right? If I can appreciate what I'm experiencing, appreciate this experience of life, right? Then I can get there, right? Instead of, I have to do this, this, and this in order to feel happiness. It's like, just appreciate existence and appreciate being here, appreciate the experience of life. And that in itself does kind of follow through with, it's once again deep philosophical of sorts, but it, you know, as it relates to happiness, I hear people talk about it all the time too. It's like, what is true happiness? Are you happy? And I really hate that "are you happy" question.
Yeah.
Like, are you happy? So what do you mean? Am I happy? Like, I experience a lot of emotions, and it's like, that's a part of it, I guess. But I'm like, do I have to be happy all the time in order to appreciate and, like, you know, enjoy life? I was like, I don't think so. I think that's a part of it, but it's not the only thing.
Correct. Yeah, I'm with you. And, you know, sometimes, I feel that we add too much, or we create this huge notion around, what is happiness? What is this thing, man? How about let's just be intentional about enjoying life and our surroundings and the environment. I interviewed this woman on my podcast last night, Cameron, that has stage 4 cancer right now. And I asked her, I said, how has this made you live life differently? And what would you tell somebody that is living a quote normal life, that doesn't have a terminal cancer diagnosis, that isn't being told like tomorrow might, that there's a higher likelihood than none that you're not going to be here?
Yeah.
She said, man, I would tell these people, like, spend a couple extra seconds watching the squirrels play, listening to the birds sing, sit in the park on the bench, buy the ice cream, like, appreciate the little things, because I believe those little tiny things are even what can invoke this quote happiness, if you will. So I look at it as just maybe not seek happiness, if you will, because again, we create it and define it and we choose it, but appreciate life, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate life, everything we get. And even in the midst of chaos, you can still hear the birds singing. You can hear the rain dropping.
Yeah.
A lot of people would kill just to be able to do those little things.
Yeah. There's a part of me, this podcast has made me such a hippie. And like having these conversations, and I'm like, am I really that much of a hippie at heart? I'm like, maybe I am. I was like,
I think I might, yeah. Maybe just think, am I a hippie now, man? Would I have said this 5 years? Would you have said this at the Citadel?
No.
Heck no.
But
You'd
I also,
be like, you don't look at those birds.
But I also wouldn't have thought about like, you know, having these, like this kind of conversation. I think just like with age, you're like, the more, well, let's go back to this. You asked like what my goal is for the podcast.
Yeah.
If I can basically just have like philosophical conversations on a daily basis and somehow figure out a way to like make that my life and like make a living out of it, that's what I want this to become, right? You just have like deep conversations with people and be like, well, how deep can we actually go? How philosophical can we actually go in this conversation to figure out the purpose and the meaning of all these different things?
Yeah.
But no, these are not things I would have thought about at the Citadel at the time. I was just trying to figure out how to survive and make it to the next class and make it, you know, and try to sleep, right? There were like things that I was considering where it's like, you know, if, you know, and this is another kind of interesting point too. It's like, if you're in a war zone, if you are in these awful situations, if you're, you know, the Great Depression, like, you were not worried about how you felt. You were worried about your next meal. You were worried about where you're going to get clean water from. You were worried about those things. So another thing to appreciate is we appreciate, wow, we get to have this conversation.
Yeah.
We get to go to this level without having to worry about the next drink.
A freaking rocket coming through the living room, which some people do have to worry about, right?
It's a lot of, I mean, some people have to worry about it. A lot of people, unfortunately, have to worry about it. And the number of people that have to worry about that keeps getting greater every single day.
Yeah.
So not to get into the geopolitical aspect of this too, but like, you know, it's a big concern across the board. And frankly, it's a concern for a lot of Americans now too, as it relates to things spreading around the world. What does happen after this election, right?
Yeah.
What happens in the next few years, few months, etc. But none of those things are really things to worry about. Just we should appreciate what we have and what we've got here. So as an American today, as you are going to vote and or have already voted and you are looking at the results tonight, tomorrow, just also appreciate the fact that you get to go and do that. You get to be a part of this process. And never forget that part of it too. I'd consider us pretty patriotic individuals.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
We love our country. So,
Amen. It's a blessing.
But go vote and get involved.
Yep.
And frankly, start speaking up about how you feel, regardless, because it's good for the system. Mm-hmm. It's good for the system to know that there are differing opinions and differing views, so everybody can learn from each other.
Yep. And
continue to enjoy this experience we call life.
Amen, brother.
Anything else you want to share about your experience running 150 miles over the bridge, and like the pain cave and where you went to?
Just recognize that whatever hardship we're going through, or that someone may choose to put themselves through, it only represents literally a fraction of a percentage of your life that will pay dividends for a much larger portion of your life. You have so much more levels within you that you don't even realize. And I'm speaking that beyond just the physical aspect.
Yeah.
We have so many more levels as it relates to our mental fitness, whatever we want to do with business, anything. And I believe that when you choose to do hard things, when life gets hard, you can stay hard because you're practicing it. And the tough times are a little bit easier. And anybody can do this. I don't believe that I'm anybody any more special than you or whoever may be listening right now. Anybody possesses the ability to go out and even run 150 miles if that fits your fancy, and I'll be rooting for you. But anybody can do anything that they want. The only thing you can't do is whatever you say you can't do, and that's what I want people to understand, man. Like, this is so much bigger than me. I don't want it to be, hey, look at Ryan, he ran 150. It's like, no, man, I want people to realize this is what's possible for them too. Whether it's 150 or whatever, or launching the pod, making it grow. Like, dude, again, like, going back to you, man, I'm super proud of you, and I wish that more people, like, my encouragement, just keep follow along this journey with Cameron. If you're tuned in, whether it's your first time, you're a friend, or just you stumbled upon this, like, this is real life, how you create your destiny and whatever it is that you want. You start small. We had 2 iPhones last time, and heck, who knows what it's going to look like next time. Just don't stop.
Just keep going.
That's it, man. That's what I learned.
I love it. Keep going, and also realizing the other thing too to recognize is that as you are doing it, you're also having an impact on others.
Yeah.
And the number of people that I know that you have coming to you and saying all the things they appreciate about watching your experience and the things they did as a follow up to that and what they changed in their life, and people that are coming to me even with 67 subscribers and be like, hey man, I listened to that podcast. Thanks for pumping it out there. I'm like,
yeah,
I had no idea if I was actually listening to it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you got something out of it. So as you're doing these things too, I think for everybody to realize, when you do something, you're also helping somebody else.
Exactly.
When you share that you're doing something, there are going to be haters and everything, as we all know. But eventually, those haters may become supporters, and they might become your best friends.
Yeah.
At some point too.
Mm-hmm. But
you never know until you start producing. Creating the content.
That's right, man.
And just doing it in general. Well, I really appreciate you coming on for this second episode. We're gonna do this again at some point in the future, and we're gonna keep it going. And I really, really appreciate you. Appreciate the friendship. Appreciate the support for the podcast, but also just you crushing goals too. So keep crushing them. Anything else you want to add at the end of this as an outro?
Keep crushing your goals. If anything, I'm offering a new resource. I'm launching my Unshakable Discipline Mastermind group and course. Everything that I've built or learned over the last 13 years is all filmed, and I've got a mastermind group that is going to be out shortly. So if anyone wants to tap in and learn from really cool people, and maybe sometimes me, then that's the place to be.
Do we have a link for that?
I'll send it, yeah. But
so can we drop that in the show notes?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Or just go to, you can actually go to unshakablediscipline.com or my website, ryancast.com, and then I'm sure the social links will be in there too. So
Perfect. Well, we'll drop that in the description.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for hopping on again, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Have a good one.
All right.
Bye.